Alright, so first of all you're gonna need your painting that you want to animate. For example, I'm gonna use the character from my Tokyo Ghoul edit. It was just a simpler animation, so I think this will do it. So cut it out, you know, and depending on the movements you want to do, like, you have to separate everything. In this case I did it like really simple and just focus on the head movement and shit. So I separated the body and did the painting here. To make a move I just used the 3D layer. And if you see right now it looks a little like not really normal, looks weird. So the best thing you can do for the movement to make it look more 3D is to use Liquify. Or Mesh Warp, you can use both, but I prefer Liquify. That's how the mesh looks. You can keyframe the movement with distortion percentage. So it looks like this. After you did your 3D thing movement, you can adjust it with Liquify so the motion actually looks 3D. So at first it's kinda like hard to tell how you wanna move it. So if you wanna move it from like I did here, it's better to adjust it like the parts in front appear bigger and the ones back like are smaller at first. So that changes with Liquify. Also you're gonna have to use this tool. Kinda looks like this, and that's how you move it to however you like. That's just very basic. There are many different ways you can do the animation things, that you can like morph it, but that's way more complex than just simply making it look a little 3D like what I'm showing here right now. Yeah, that's just the body. You can animate the hands and shit, of course, but I did it very simple here. Next step with that animation was the head. Alright, so you're gonna need to cut out your hair. I don't really use the masking tool, I only repaint everything because it's easier, I don't know. You basically have to cut out every single piece of hair to animate it so it looks clean. And this takes a shit ton of while. Like, I had to use like 50 layers for the hair here. And you can do a little lazier than this here, but I just did so many hair strains because it looks like way more detailed. That's just the animation of the hair. Like I can show you real quick. That's how you like cut out only one strain. Then the next step is you recompose it. Make puppets from up to down. So to every part which is like a point where it could move, if that makes sense. And if you don't have auto sway, you should get it. It's your best friend with animating hair. So you do the puppets, click away from this layer because it fucks up if you do it before, I don't know why. Then you just click the layer without the puppet selected and hit apply. Then for every puppet point you get a controller here and the main controller from all the sways, and there you can like determine the distance, the roundness and the speed and shit. I always mess with the offset on each strain so the movement doesn't look repetitive on every strain, and you do that on every strain so it looks something like this. Again, I just did so many because it looks very detailed, and you don't have to mess with the main painting here that much. Like, it looks a little weird if there's just a white part of random shit behind, so I did many strains so it looks better. The shadowing, I just copy paste, like I duplicate the layer and put drop shadow on it and use like shadow only, and then I just cut out to the face part, if that makes sense. So the shadow of the hair only applies on the face and not randomly behind the character. So in case you have any overlays or background shit going on, it just would have looked weird if the shadow like applies on nothing. So I always masked out the face or body parts, so it only projects the shadow like on the body parts. Alright, next after animating the hair and shit, you can animate it with the 3D tool, just a simple head turn to make it look 3D. And again, it doesn't look very 3D, just looks, I don't know. And that's how it looks with Liquify. Like, again, it looks way more 3D in my opinion. That's how the mesh looks. You concentrate basically on the parts that are in the foreground of the head, so you make it bigger, and the one behind, you make them appear smaller, so it looks actually 3D. Boom. Alright, so now we animated the hair, and next step is the face. Again, you, like with every animation shit you do, you have to mask and cut out everything. So here you repaint the face and shit, so only the face is here, and most of the time I just make the characters bald, to not to make fun of them, but to like know where the head should end, like to not mess up the hair or something. Yeah, then you basically cut out each part of the face, the eyes and shit to animate them, and there are different ways to make the face animation look 3D. Like, I most of the time do it like more or less lazy, but if you really want to have a good look on the details, you can also, let's just say you have all details, the eyes, nose, etc. You can also use again the 3D tool and just like this, and move the eye parts like out of the face, so it goes like this. You would use some mask there so it doesn't look weird, but in addition to the liquify and shit, it would actually look way more 3D. I don't know if that makes sense now, but maybe I'll get deeper into that type of 3D animation as well, but this is just very basic what I'm doing right now here. And next step is, again, like with every part we did, you use the 3D tool and animate it like the other parts. It doesn't have to be the same like properties here, just so it looks like somewhat, oh, forgot to change it back. Okay, just so it looks like the other body parts moving. Use Liquify again to make it look 3D. Boom. I think you can see here pretty well the changes, like with and without Liquify. This is without, it looks like an image just 3D moving. And here you can actually see like the face morphing, like not really morphing, but moving 3D towards the camera. So this is what the animation looks finished, like with everything. I would also suggest to at the end pre-compose everything and to look at more like a whole composition of the character. Also maybe use Liquify again to keep it like a whole animation, just so not that it looks separated from everything. And yeah, it looks 3D now. Again, this is very basic 3D shit, you can do way more, but I just wanted to show the basics on how I do it most of the time. And I always use post-raise time on the animation, so it looks like, I don't know, with post-raise time I think it looks way like better animated. So here it looks a little cleaner because there are less frames in my opinion, so I always use that. You don't have to, but I always do that. Next shit I always do is I mean, here it's not really compositing, it's just the VFX thing. Yeah, let's just say overlays are your best friends to make the scene look cooler. Yeah, it just depends on the scene. If you have like this type of background, is just you can go crazy with effects. You can use this kind of outline on the character. Or I can show later another example how I composite on real backgrounds. On an edit that's not even finished yet, but I can do that. And yeah, it's just basically, if you have overlays, you should always try to make the colors, etc. fit to them. I think that makes sense. Yeah, this is taking a long to pre-render, but as I said, there are many different overlays you can use. It just depends on the scene. I'm gonna show you now the next type of animations I'm doing right now. For example, if you want to combine manga animations or anime scenes with other backgrounds or more real-life backgrounds. Alright, so we're at my next project, and this is not close to be finished yet, but I have some scenes there that maybe can help you onto how I composite things, etc, etc. So let's just say you have a basic animation, preferably colored. You can recolor it yourself, but some mangas have their own colored version. There's the manga animation. I showed you before how to animate it to look 3D. It's just a basic, simple 3D way again. Nothing too crazy. The lazy way, you could say. And you have your background. And now you want to know, wait, I'm going to show you how it looks without the compositing edit. And you know, it doesn't blend into the background. So the first step I always do is use levels. Go basically through each color and use this here, this tool right here, to adjust the lighting to the background. As you can see, it's darker. So I tend to put it up till it matches the forest in the background. And RGB is basically only the lighting, the contrast, etc. And the first color, red. This scene has a lot of red elements here, so you kind of want to put it out and get to a more greener turquoise look. And you do the same basically on every color part of levels, so it matches the background. The next thing I always do kinda depends on the background. I use hue saturation and take out the saturation, like the main saturation of the scene, to match it more to the saturation of the background. I mean, that makes sense, I think. And you can always go to each of the colors and adjust it more. Let's just say the eye color here is too saturated. You can like decrease it completely, or if you want to point it out more, you can increase it so you have more color on the reds. Yeah, that's just the hue saturation, and you can adjust with curves the contrast on how the details appear. So I'm gonna put it like this and this. So that's like the difference between the lighter parts and the darker parts. In this scene, you don't really want to point out the lighter parts that much because the scene in general is just darker. So I'm gonna leave it like this. We've got a pretty good coloring on this animation here, so it matches to the background. And my favorite effect to blend the animation or whatever to the background scene even more is to use light wrap. I'm using the one from Crate, but there's also one from BCC, I think, but I just think this one is the best for me. So that's how it looks with the light wrap. As you can see, it blends in to the background colors. I wouldn't use that much of exposure there, because if you use the basic setting from the plugin, I think there's a little too much of the green coloring. So I always put it down, like it depends on the scene, but I always put it down. If there is lighting in the background, I also, like, let's just say there's a light coming from there, which is kinda the case here. I'm using solids in the same color of the light to point out the light even more, if that makes sense. So mask out the point with the same color of the solid and put mask feather way up. So it's just a little light add-on. And that's just the basic compositing. To make it look cooler, you can add overlays, like leaves falling would make sense here, that's why I added. Also use key light if you're using overlays with green screen and shit. It just depends on the scene. I mean, you can't really add that much crazy overlays if you want to keep it realistic with the background. Also, if you want to blend it in more, you can always use lens flare or optical flares. It makes the scene look way better. And again, I use post-rest time because it makes the scene look better in my eyes. That's the first thing I wanted to show, the breakdown of the compositing. And the next thing is kinda getting to know how to use overlays for really setting up the vibe, the VFX and shit. So let's go through this. Again, you have your background. I made this in Blender real quick. And you have your characters here. So same play again. You don't have to use curves and shit on the background to adjust it, but I did it so it matches a darker vibe. Same play on the characters again. You're gonna use light wrap again. You're gonna use curves, hue, levels, all that to make it match the scene. The next step I did is also add a little bit of this white outline with the light, what's it called, light sweep. But don't overdo the light sweep too much. I don't use that much opacity for the light sweep outline. And I also mask it only to the parts where it makes sense that the light would shine onto the characters. Here, for example, I only used 45% because it just would be too much lighting. There is a plugin from, I don't recall the name. It's just called Shadow, and it basically throws a 3D shadow on the characters, just like that, but my program just completely fumbled and crashed. So I removed the plugin and had to do everything again, and did the same thing, but use the characters, duplicate them, put tint on them, a blur, and put them like 3D position wise so it makes sense. And yeah, that's just that scene built up with the compositing thing I told you earlier. And then the play with all the overlays starts again. I showed earlier that I use a rain overlay, so I'm using this so it makes sense that the rain is falling on the stones. Yeah, that's just how it looks when the rain is... I just picked the overlay where the rain is falling down on the ground. It's just a little detail. I think it makes it look a little better. Then I used some random smoke overlays. I don't know. I just picked them because they fitted into the scene. Used key light, curves, levels, adjusted them a little. Masked out the stones where they have to be on top or behind, and they are fitting into the scene now. So in this scene, that's the scene where Kakashi stabs her. I used some electric effects to make it fit way more. I used a blood overlay and just many electric overlays. There are many on YouTube you can find. I basically tried to make an impact with the electric overlays onto the characters, so I adjusted them position wise. You can do that any way you want. I just try to position them to the characters. Now that that's out of the way with the basic overlay positioning, I wanted to make the lightnings adjust more to the characters. So I used solids again, like you normally do when you want to adjust a lighting to the scene, but I used it for the lightnings. So here it looks more blend into the character's hand, for example, or this body part. Next, I used just compositing wise more overlays. Fog, you can always use fog, it makes the scene look more volumetric. A leaf falling overlay again, because why not? And you can always use some light particles, and of course rain overlay and a little dust. And that's how I built this scene right here to composite it to the real life background. Alright, and that's how the scene looks. Animated the body as well with pin puppet tools, and I separated every arm part. I think this scene looks pretty cool. You could say it's a little too much overlays going on. It's like however you like, but that's just how I like it.